As a young girl, I remember a shopping trip with my aunt and my grandma. As soon as we were done getting all the groceries that we needed, we went and stood in the checkout line, which was pretty long. My grandma started getting very impatient. All of a sudden, I heard a shriek from the woman in front of us. My grandma was ramming the woman in front of us in the heels with our shopping cart. The woman finally settled down, and my grandma settled down, and everything was good after a couple of minutes. You might ask, why would a grown woman behave in such a way? At the time, I had no clue why she was acting the way she did, but I later found out that my grandmother had Alzheimer's disease. Many of us have a loved one or know somebody who has Alzheimer's disease, and it's important for us to understand the disease in order to help in the care for our loved one. Today I'm going to inform you about Alzheimer's disease. I'm going to discuss the definition of it and tell you about the cause, symptoms, and treatment of it as well. First, let's look at the definition of the disease. The Encyclopedia of Medicine, Nursing, and Allied Health defines it as an incurable disease that strikes mostly elderly people, gradually destroying nerve cells and brain tissue until the person is no longer able to remember, think, or take care of themselves. This disease is degenerative, which means that it progressively gets worse over time. Physiologically, an Alzheimer's brain looks much different than a normal brain. This is a normal brain. This is an Alzheimer's brain. As you can see, the Alzheimer's brain has literally shrunk because of nerve cells dying, and it's pretty much eaten away the middle part of it. Looking at the differences in these two pictures, it's no wonder that someone with Alzheimer's disease functions much differently than someone with a normal brain. While researchers haven't found a direct cause of Alzheimer's, they have a few indicators that make a person more susceptible to the disease. Some of these include being 65 or older, being female. It happens more often in females than males. You're more susceptible if you have certain genes that are linked to the disease, if you have a blood relative that has the disease, and also if you have a history of head trauma or high blood pressure. These signs are just indicators that make a person more susceptible. They don't necessarily mean that you'll get the disease if you have some of those. Although there are no direct causes of Alzheimer's, watching for symptoms and early signs may help in the care of your loved one. In Paul Dash's book, Alzheimer's Disease, he describes that the first symptoms are often very mild. It's sometimes hard to determine whether it's just normal forgetting or if it's actually some sort of dementia. Doctors can do memory tests to help distinguish the differences. The early stages of Alzheimer's disease include forgetting simple things like not remembering where you put your keys or forgetting things around the house. They also include losing track of time and place. For example, your loved one might drive around the town forgetting where their church is. Also, lack of judgment is apparent in this stage. For example, if it's really cold outside, the person might put summery clothes on. In the middle stages of the disease, the symptoms become worse. They have the decreased ability to do normal adult things like managing their finances and planning trips and things like that. At this point, they can't survive without some sort of assistance. A lot of times they can't recall the names of family members, and they'll try to make up for these deficits by calling their grandkids kiddo or sport or things like that. The later stages of Alzheimer's brings family changes that they're no longer able to take care of their loved one. A lot of times they choose long-term care facilities to help out. In these stages, the person forgets the name of their spouse sometimes. They're unaware of recent events and what's going on in the world. They a lot of times get delusional and agitated. And a lot of times they need help with simple daily tasks such as getting dressed or going to the bathroom. In the final stages of Alzheimer's disease, the body declines until it eventually shuts down. In this stage, the person is completely incontinent. They're no longer able to talk or to walk like they used to. Although the outlook is bleak, the National Institute of Health reports that the FDA has approved some medications to help in the treatment of the disease. These include things like Aricept and Exelon, and these are just to treat some of the symptoms of the disease. They haven't been proven to significantly delay the progression of the disease, though. Let's wrap up our time by reviewing what I've covered. Today we discussed the definition, the symptoms, the cause, and the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. Research says that over 10% of people over the age of 65 will develop Alzheimer's disease. And that statistic really surprised me. That's pretty high. Alice Parks wrote an article for Time magazine, and she reported that the number of people in America with Alzheimer's will increase from 5 million people right now to 13.4 million people in the year 2050. As Alzheimer's disease is becoming more and more prevalent, I hope you now have a better understanding of the disease and everything that goes along with it. Researchers are continually testing new medicines and trying to find things to help out with Alzheimer's disease and possibly even a cure. Even though right now the future of Alzheimer's patients looks pretty bleak, we need to appreciate the time we have with our loved ones and hope for a better tomorrow. This concludes my speech.